So let's look at some of the mathematics behind option contracts. So intrinsic value for call position. So this is an open of buying a call contract for a stock option. So intrinsic value formula, what we saw from the textbook, is going to be stock price minus strike price equals intrinsic value. If the stock price, though, is lower than the strike price, and the result of that calculation is a negative, intrinsic value should be zero. So I never want to have a negative as an intrinsic value. So this contract clearly has no intrinsic value because the stock price is lower than the strike price. So I could actually put in an if statement here to simulate this. So I could say if stock price is greater than strike price, and if that's true, then C5 minus, if false, 0. Okay, so since the stock price is not higher than the strike price, I put in 0. So that way I want to use an if statement, not a straight up calculation, because I would put a negative value in there. So time value is going to be intrinsic value minus the call premium. Oops, the other way around. Call premium minus the intrinsic value. So the total cost would be intrinsic value plus time value. Now the total cost of the contract, since there's one contract, or one contract equals 100 shares, I would say the cost multiplied by the number of contracts multiplied by 100. So this would be the cost of the contract. Okay, and actually the formula would be better, sir. Oh yeah, no, I did that. So if I was to change this to 2, now the cost goes to 250. Okay, so that's a good way to mathematically put this together. Now let's look at the close side of a contract. So you know the strike price can't change. So at the close, what changed is the stock price and the strike and the call premium. So let me copy this formula from here. Actually, let me try copying. Oh, we're just doing intrinsic value and time value. So let me just see if I can copy these down here. It worked. Okay. So here, stock price is $4 above strike price, so that's the intrinsic value is $4 per share. Time value would be the call premium minus the intrinsic value, so time value is only 25 cents, which is telling me, since here all the value is in time value, up here it tells me that this contract probably has a long time before it expires. Here, with such a small time value, this contract may only have days before it expires. Okay, so at the close of the contract, what we're going to do is there's 3 things we can do. We could trade, execute, or expire. So if I'm going to trade, I basically am going to sell the contract to somebody else. So that means what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the formula in. I'm going to receive the call premium times the number of contracts times 100. So, but the formula is not finished there because that's just the profit. I have to also add to that or subtract from that my cost of the contract. So it would be if I traded it, I'd make a $300 profit. Execute would say, let me actually execute and buy the stock at the strike price and then sell the stock at the market. So what we would say here is I'm going to sell times 1 contract times 100 shares. So that would be what the money I'm going to get when I sell the stock at $40 a share, but I have to subtract from that the purchase price times the number of contracts times 100 shares per contract. So the profit here would not be 400 because at the very end, I'm going to have to subtract the cost of the contract. So here I only make $275 because it cost me $125 to get the contract. I made $400 in trading the contract, but after I subtract my costs, I'm only going to retain $275 in premium. Now, if I let the contract expire, my profit's going to be, my loss will be $125. So letting the contract expire just means I lost whatever I paid for the contract. So those would be the three examples of a call contract if I trade, execute, or expire. Try the example below, and then when you're finished, the next worksheet has the actual key, and you can check your answers against the key. So let's move over and do the next example, which is a put contract. So now the intrinsic value of a put contract is the inverse of a call contract. So over here we said we're looking at having the stock price be higher than the strike price. So here we want the strike price to be higher than the stock price. So if I was going to make an if statement for this, I would say if strike price is greater than stock price, then strike price minus stock price, otherwise zero. So the intrinsic value here is $1 per share. So what that basically means is if I have the right to sell it at $36 a share, and I can actually buy it for $35 a share in the market, there's $1 of intrinsic value. So the time value is going to be the put premium minus the intrinsic value, and this gives us the time value. So the actual cost of the contract is going to be both time and intrinsic value together. Forgot to hit shift. Okay, so the total cost of the contract, this is something I'm adding, it's not in the answer key, but I just wanted to show you that it's going to be, you have to multiply against the number of contracts times 100 shares per contract. So these are all per share values here, and this would be the total contract, if you just wanted to have a reference. Okay. All right, moving lower. So this is the opening of a put contract. Now the close on the put contract, again, I can just bring the formulas from here down. Here, okay, so it's saying that there's no intrinsic value. So it won't show negative because there's no negative intrinsic value, but it will show if the strike price is 36 and the stock price is at 40, having the right to sell the stock at 36 is not valuable when the stock price is currently 40. Okay. So if I were to trade, what would I make if I were to trade the stock? So basically, to do this, I would receive 5 cents per share. So I'm going to have to multiply this by the number of contracts times 100 shares. So this is the income I'm going to receive, but I have to also subtract from that the cost of the contract. So here, if I let the contract, if I trade the contract, I'm going to lose $140. If I execute the contract, which would basically be saying, okay, I'm going to sell at 36 and repurchase at 40. So if I take this times the number of contracts times 100 shares per contract, and I'm going to add to that, subtract from that the stock price times the contract times 100 shares, I have a loss of 400. So basically, but it's actually more than that because I have to also include the cost of the contract. So I'm going to lose 545 on that. Okay. Now, just checking the key. Now, if I let the contract expire, I'm just going to lose the cost of the contract, which is 145. So the best case scenario here is to trade. I lose the least amount of money when I trade as opposed to let it expire or execute the contract. Okay, so you could try the example below, and when you're done, you can check out the answer key here if you want to see the answers. And the answers I put in, I think, total profit or loss for the total contract. So you can kind of check that out on your own. And I want to move to another handout to talk about some other examples of this. Okay, so in this particular handout, okay, let me escape here. What we're going to be talking about is there's two columns. I'm going to do the first column here, and then if you want to do the second column later, you can do that. So in the first column, we have the current market price of the stock, the premium, the strike price, the number of shares per contract, and the dividends received. And now, so this example is going to be we're going to look at just one contract. Okay, so the price of the stock remains unchanged. So if the price of the stock remains unchanged, then the quarterly dividend received is going to be, since this is a covered call, we own the stock, so we're going to actually receive the dividend, and the proceeds from the sale of the call, we're going to get, since the stock price is unchanged, and the strike price is above the stock price, the contract's not going to execute, so we'll get to keep all the premium. So then I'm going to just say the premium times 100 shares. So my total net profit would be my premium plus the dividends I received. So I received $350 profit because why? It's a covered call. I'm holding the stock, so I'm going to receive any dividends it pays. Plus, I'm going to receive the premium from right in the call position because the stock price was unchanged. Now let's look. What if the stock price goes up to 81? So now the quarterly dividends are going to be received because it's a covered call. But the proceeds from the sale of the call are also going to be the same because once I receive that premium, I never lose it. Now the gain or loss in the contract is going to be a little bit different. Now what we have here is I have this contract, if I go back to the top, has a strike price of 80, which means if the current price is 81, I'm going to lose $1 a share. And if I multiply that by 100 shares, I got to do my parentheses here. I'm going to lose $100 when this contract executes. So somebody's going to actually go and they're going to say, okay, I want to buy the stock for $80 a share, and I'm going to have to make up that dollar difference. So my overall net gain on the contract is going to be $250. So because I lost 100. Now, what if the stock price goes up to 90? So again, I'm going to a constant is I'm going to receive those dividends and the premium no matter what the stock price goes to. Those are just a constant. And they should be expressed as a currency. So this whole column should be a currency. Okay. Now the gain or loss, again, is going to be strike price minus the current stock price. And I'm going to have to put my parentheses in place here and multiply by 100 shares. So I lose $1,000 on this, and then if I find the sum of this, I lost $650 because the dividends and the premium help cushion some of the loss when the stock price goes up. Okay, what if the stock price drops to 71? Let's see if I can just move this down here. Okay. So now the stock price drops down to 71. The contract's not going to execute it because I put so this is going to be 0. It's not going to execute because the strike price is higher than the stock price. So no one's going to want to pay more for the stock than it's currently trading in the marketplace. So anytime the stock price is lower, here at 60, it's going to be the same results. So anytime the stock price is, and this is the same, is the same unchanged or lower than the strike price, you're going to receive the dividends and the premium. Okay, so you could try that over here by yourself if you want. I'm going to move over to what we call naked calls. Okay, so in a naked call, it's naked because I don't own the underlying stock. So if I don't have the underlying stock, that makes the scenario a little bit different. So dividends, if I don't own the underlying stock, I'm never going to receive the dividends. But I will always receive the proceeds from the sale of the call. So I'm selling a call contract. I don't own the stock. That's why it's called a naked position. So this leaves me a little bit more exposed. However, since there's more risk, there can be potential more gains. So if I'm for the call contract, the premium is going to be the $250 per share times the 100 shares. So I'm always going to get the premium values. Let's move this to currency. Okay. So my net profit is going to be the sum of these two. Okay. So this, if the stock price is unchanged, I'm going to make 250, which is pretty nice. But what if the stock price goes up to 81? Quarterly dividends received is going to be 0 because I don't own the stock. So writing a contract or owning an option contract gives you no rights to the dividends. It's only the person who actually owns the stock. In a naked position, I don't own the stock. So the sale of proceeds is still going to be that 250. That doesn't change. What changes is the gain or loss. If the stock price goes up to 81, okay, and I promised to sell the stock to them at 80, I'm going to have a loss here. So basically, it's going to be the price at which I promised to sell minus the price at which they are going to be able, that I'm going to have to deliver. So I promised to sell to them at $80 per share. I don't own the stock. I'm going to have to go buy the stock at $81 per share to give it to them. So I'm going to lose $1 per share. So I lose $100 on this contract. But I have the premium to cushion that. So I'm using a keyboard here where I have to do shift to get the plus. Okay, so I still make $150 on this because the stock price didn't move up that much further compared to the strike price, only $1. What happens if the stock price goes up to 90? So I can just copy this down here. So what we see here is, let me check this formula here. So I promised to sell at 80. So they can buy the stock at 80. I'm going to go have to buy the stock at 90 in the market because I have a naked position. So if I multiply that times 100 contracts, I lose $1,000. But the premium does cushion that a little bit. So what's basically happening is, remember, we'll do one more example here. If the stock price, I promised to sell at $80 per share when I wrote this contract. I don't own the stock, so I can't just deliver the stock to them. I have to go in the market and buy it if they're going to execute the contract. So in this particular point, if the contract goes down to if the stock price goes down to 71 and they want to execute the contract, I want to calculate my net profits. I have 0 dividends. Okay, actually the dividends here. I have 0 dividends. The proceeds from the sale of the call are $250. The gain or loss is going to be the $71 that is in the current market. Oh, actually, this is the price. The stock price is going down, so that's good. So since I promised to sell at 80, they change this formula. I promised to sell to them at 80. So if they wanted to buy at 80 and I had to buy it back in the market, minus the 71 times 100. So if this was actually going to happen, I'd make $1,150. Now, this is not going to happen though, because if the stock price drops to 81, they would just let the contract expire. They wouldn't exercise and buy it at 80 from me if they can buy it in the market at 71. So the true reality is that the contract would expire. They wouldn't execute it, so I would make $250 on that contract. So there's no world will someone execute and trade a contract. So if the stock price is below, so if the stock price remains at the if it's the stock price, it remains at the strike price or below, I'm going to make $250. It's only when the stock price is above the strike price is when I start to lose money on these naked positions. So let's look at the example here. So this $60 example would be the same thing. They would not execute. I would make $250. But what if this $90? What if the stock went up to $500 a share? Now I'm going to lose $41,000, $750, because the problem with a naked call is the stock price could go to, maybe it's Tesla and it goes to $900 a share. Now I lost 81,000. So when you write a naked call, you have this unlimited loss potential because the stock price could really increase to anything that's possible because there's no upper limit. So writing naked calls are dangerous because there's really no stopping where the stock price can go to. The only time I really win out when I write a naked call is if the stock price is below the strike price. And in that case, I'm not going to see a gain on the trade because they're not going to execute. Now, okay, so that's just a quick video to go through some of the math. If you don't like looking at those charts, just doing a little bit of math of calculating the gains or losses on a contract. Now, if you have a brokerage account, you can go in a brokerage account and get quotes for stock options. You could go to Yahoo Finance, and when you look up a quote of a stock, you can also click on options on Yahoo Finance, and you can see the different quotations for options that they'll display in Yahoo to see the prices, the premiums, the calls, the puts, and the strike prices. So I encourage you to kind of check out and simulate. Don't actually buy the positions, but simulate what if scenarios. Look at a couple of option contracts today, write down the information of it, wait a few days, see where the stock price goes, and calculate, use these two spreadsheets to kind of calculate what your return would have been. Okay, thank you for your time. I hope you found this valuable, and I'll talk to you soon.